But let's get
Yeah.
back to the process.
Yeah.
So I pitched something last night, and I was like, just imagine if you take a Brandon Ingram instead of a Ben Simmons. Again, maybe it's my Duke fandom, but I was tooting the Brandon Ingram horn the whole time. I was like, yeah, Ben Simmons is like good, but he can't shoot, and he didn't get to the tournament out of the SEC. I don't like that. And what Brandon Ingram has turned into, he's like 25, 5, and 5. And you can count on him to shoot the ball. You can get a league average point guard to just initiate your offense. Y'all probably could have kept TJ McConnell. And just imagine if you had Ingram, Tatum, which could have been available with the way that you all were tanking and whatnot, and Embiid. What does that team look like now?
Ingram, Tatum, and Embiid. Well, it's hard to say because Brandon Ingram's still one of those players that's all stats and no winning, and you don't know if those guys just aren't in a good situation like Devin Booker, or if they actually can't make a team better like DeMarcus Cousins.
I think
But I think
3 coaches, 3 years. Zion wants out.
Yeah, or his family wants out allegedly. I think surrounding Embiid with playmaking and shooting is never a bad thing. Um, I think the one thing that's underrated about Tatum is his defense also. Like for all we want to say about Ben Simmons' defense, Jason Tatum's been an A plus defender since he stepped into the league at age, what was it? He's 19 years old. That whole deal.
Really, 19.
Right. So he's been a good defender also. Brandon Ingram definitely hasn't. But if you surrounded Embiid with that type of shooting and you have an initiator, a point guard, say you even signed Drew Holiday this last offseason or something like that, just like a pretty steady facilitator and a good
Well, you
defender.
drafted Lonzo instead of Markelle Fultz.
Right. If they made all the, which Lonzo again, also extremely good defender. I think that team right there would be really good. It's just one of those things where like, I guess now we trust Jason Tatum to be a superstar in the playoffs, especially, but like that just happened this year, right? Like, or maybe last year, but like, I think this year they might have been good, but it would have been rough until this year, just because I don't really trust, including Embiid, I don't trust any of those guys under 4 minutes in the playoffs to be like, you need to score 8 straight points, except for Tatum starting literally a month ago. So I think, yeah, it would have been more well spaced. The system, it would have flowed better as a basketball system. That's something that the Hawks and even the Suns, when you watch them, it's like, all right, this is like flowing basketball. The ball moves, you shoot it, it looks nice. The Bucks and the Sixers, it's like clunky, or it's like running into a wall over and over again. It's ugly hook shots. It's a lot of like rebounding and grinding. It's a different type of basketball, man.
I'll tell you, I sent to a group text during the game. I'm like, it's hard to watch Giannis. Like he is a tough.
It is, especially in the playoffs. It's rough. It's a rough brand of basketball.
And the worst part is you'd wish that Ben Simmons could do some of the stuff that he does. Like Giannis is like Sonic. He like winds up and then just takes off running at the basket and like Euros, and it goes in sometimes. And you go,
yeah,
dude, how? I mean, this works because you're so long, you're so strong, but
and the second jump helps for sure.
Yes, but this is ugly. This is ugly basketball. Like when James Harden said what he said 2 years ago, I was like, yeah, James, you're right. You're absolutely right. But even with the process, and another criticism I had with the process was as the game was becoming more of a 3-point shooter game, a spacing game, it seemed like Sam Hinkie, the genius, wanted big men. Like y'all drafted Nerlens, y'all drafted Jaleel, y'all drafted Joel, and I'm not knocking the Joel piece.
The other two are pretty rough. Yeah. So it's interesting. I think the mindset behind it. I did a whole video on this. I'm sure I sent it to you at some point. But like the whole point was to draft assets. Like don't worry about what position or if they fit together or if they look good on the court together, because they probably won't even take the court together, and that's the case with a couple of them. But like it was to draft the best asset as like a trade piece almost as value, not to make a basketball team. And yes, that's I mean Nerlens Noel has carved out somewhat of a niche in the NBA, but um it is weird that he didn't especially with Okafor. Okafor, that was the weirdest one. And I know we all like, oh, Porzingis went after him or whoever did. Um, but it's weird that he didn't see that one coming because at least Nerlens has a place in any time period of basketball. Okafor has one like strictly in like the late '80s. Um, it is weird, but he just drafted him as value as opposed to putting together an actual basketball team.
And I think you deserve the bad basketball karma that you got for this, because it's like I get that players are assets, but when you're looking at building a team, no matter what kind of team it is, and you're looking at the commodities as assets and not individuals that can build a team, you obviously don't value a lot of the intangible things that it takes to be successful. And now you have these early flameouts with a highly talented team, because I think some of that dirty culture is still in the locker room, man. Like, one of the reasons why I want Matt Ryan gone from the Falcons is because I
Mhm.
want damn near every piece of 28 and 3 gone. Am I okay with keeping Debo Jones? Yes, he's a linebacker. Am I okay with Jake Matthews? Yeah, he's an offensive lineman. But as far as the serious contributors, like our quarterback, who like
Yeah.
had the game in his hands, I want you out of here because you still have that smell on you. Hey, front office guys who are here, I want y'all out of here just because you have that smell on you. And the sad thing about Philly is, I would like to say that a lot of the you want some of that process out of here, but Joel is too valuable, and you have Daryl Morey, who's gonna make great decisions. I mean, Daryl
Yeah.
Morey might be the best GM in the NBA. He just doesn't get the credit for it because he hasn't won a championship. But
Well, he'll go for it.
yeah,
He might not even make the best decisions, but he's going to take a swing. Like he's gonna. You're not gonna not win a championship for lack of risk taking or trying. We'll say that.
right. And you and I were talking about this, and the more and more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, Sean's right. Um, it's gonna take a lot to get proper value for Ben Simmons early off season. And it
Yeah.
doesn't help that he's not gonna play in the Olympics, from what I've read. Um, Doc and Daryl.
Yeah. Well, I would say with that is that I think he needed good PR. So I think he put out the statement, I won't play in the Olympics. I need to do skill building is what came out. So I think that's him announcing to the world instead of the Olympics, I'll be shooting a million jump shots a day. So I think that could go either way, depending on if it works or not. Um,
Doc and
so
Daryl are
yeah,
singing his praises now.
yeah, I'm sure.
Daryl's like, I love. He's like, 25 GMs would like to be in our situation right now, and I go, You're right.
Yeah.
But your expectations are different, And then I think Woj put out that he's going to consider shooting with his right hand this summer, because apparently he's right-handed, but shoots with his left hand, and
Something like 80% of his finishes in the lane or his hook shots are all from his right hand.
that's a Kevin O'Connor stat, isn't it?
I've heard it a bunch of different places because you even
Okay.
heard that coming into LSU. Most of his finishes at the rim are with his right hand, which I also think is overrated. And I know that Tristan Thompson did this at some point. I don't think it worked really that well. But LeBron is also left-handed and shoots with his right hand, and
Yeah.
he's managed to piece together a pretty solid jump shot. So I think it's mental. I think it's reps and it's mental. And I think Ben Simmons, both of them haven't. He hasn't put in the reps, and his mental kind of fell apart. So I switching the hand doesn't. I don't think that really does much for me. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. And I think the mental piece is big, man, because like I was telling you before we came on, being at the game and watching his demeanor going to the sideline, looking at him at the free throw line, especially when they do the hack a bend, it's like his soul was gone. And I usually don't like to get into players' heads, because when I see it, it makes me sick. Like, I went on a rant yesterday about Rick Bucher, and I'll pitch that one to you a little bit later. Um, and then I hear Skip Bayless do it sometimes, and it's like, bro, you don't know what's going on in his head. You don't. But when you look at how Ben Simmons was shooting, and the fact that he's passing the ball and layup and dunk opportunities, he's got the ball in the front court and he's not pushing, he's passing the ball. It's like, oh, bro, you don't you don't want it. Like, you're not shooting in the fourth quarter. Everything says that your confidence is shot, man. And it's really unfortunate because we thought Ben Simmons was going to be a top 15, a perennial all NBA type player like 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I think he is. He's just a different type of all NBA player. Like he's a good player, but if you can only give me 4 points in a playoff game, you're not the type of player that you necessarily think a number one pick in an NBA draft is going to be. And then to add on to his mental fell apart and the evidence of that and his demeanor and his facial expressions, his preparation also you can tell that he hasn't been putting in the reps necessarily, or at least being consistent with it. So I believe it was last year or maybe 2 years ago, his free throw. He had a stretch where he hit about 70% of his free throws for a couple weeks, and it was noticeable the changes. His knees bent, the elbow was in a little more, and that's gone now. Like it worked, and you could tell he stopped practicing it because it went away. And if someone works hard enough at that and you do it consistently, it becomes a habit. And he didn't do that because the knee bend was gone, the elbows is out here. Like how are you gonna do that? How's that gonna go in the basket? People were even saying you should go with the Rick Barry, the underhand, which honestly I think should be used more, considering that people like him and even Clint Capella, like, you're so bad. Why not go with the underhand? I
It's
feel like it would work
embarrassing.
better. Yeah, it just is. It's corny as hell. I think that's the one reason people don't do it.
You
Because
want to
Rick
know?
Barry was like a 90% free throw shooter.
You want to know what's embarrassing?
Hmm.
Shooting 50% or less from the free throw line. That's embarrassing.
Yeah,
So, by any means necessary. So,
yeah.
I people think Ben is going to move. He may not. The way Daryl's talking, it's going to be more of a reclamation project. But I also heard someone else say Doc's not really into reclamation projects. He's into having finished players and them playing, which shows by his only championship season. He had a finished roster who just needed some. Hey, you guys take a day off. Hey, let's do a little bit of subbing here.
Practices now, like, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So, what do you think y'all get for Ben Simmons? And who would you like to get for Ben Simmons? Being real, don't tell me some like Bradley Bill bullshit that's like some hot takey stuff. Something that's reasonable.
No, I mean, personally, I would keep him just because he's young, and I wanna see if he means business, if he actually is going to practice his shot, and we'll know the moment he gets into training camp. Like, you'll know the moment he gets in whether he's actually been putting in work, because you know it doesn't take much to get better than what he is right now, which is zero. So, like, if he gets a little bit better, it'll be obvious. So I would say, though, if you really really have to move him currently, like present day, right now, have to move him before the draft, like, I'd say before, maybe you could have traded him for CJ McCollum, but I think now you even have to add a pick. Like, I think he's not even equal to that at this point. And CJ had a terrible postseason too. Um, eh, like, maybe for the Bradley Beal thing, you'd have to put together a massive. You'd have to put him, Thibault, Maxey, and a bunch of firsts, and maybe then it isn't even enough.
And is that
Um,
even worth it for y'all?
I mean, you kind of got the future, you kind of got our defense, but Bradley Beal is awesome. That dude's a bad man. I watched him a lot this year, and it makes me sad that he's not good on a good basketball team. Realistically, I mean,
Being in a
who
pick for
who what's up?
being in a pick for CJ. That's about the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um,
And
he
even that would give us probably one of the you go from having one of the best defensive backcourts in him and Danny Green to then Seth Curry and McCollum. That would be awful.
yeah, but you still have Thibault. You
Right.
you you hope that he can become a more of a 3 and D guy, and then you
He
find
played really well. He
he
shot
did.
the ball really well in the Atlanta series. And
And
you'd be able to start him then because Ben wouldn't be the shooting liability. So maybe.
so that I've been hearing this whole Golden State thing, and I think it's been planted out there because Golden State must obviously be interested. But
Mm.
without being a capologist, I don't see why Philly takes on Andrew Wiggins or maybe a Kelly Oubre. I don't know. Yeah, right, exactly. what does James Wiseman do for Philadelphia? He becomes an asset that you're going to immediately flip.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
how
we
does
and we don't want one of their current picks either. We don't want their like newest first rounders either. Like
no,
we don't.
because they got what 7 and 14, so they're not great picks,
Yeah.
and y'all are trying to win right now. And also, how do you play Draymond and Ben Simmons? Like they're practically the same person. Ben Simmons is obviously a better perimeter defender. I'd say better at the rim, but I still think Draymond is a better defensive captain, a free safety type.
Better
And
communicator.
right, and Draymond, his three's not what it used to be, but I respect Draymond's corner three or top of the key three way more than I respect Ben Simmons. And how do
Yeah.
you put both of them on the court?
No. That would be they would probably trade Draymond if they got Ben Simmons because you can't have them on the court at the same time. Maybe you'd be able to have 2016 Draymond on the court at the same time, but
Absolutely.
that guy is gone offensively.
And how would that make Steph and Clay feel? You ship Draymond out to bring in Ben Simmons, the guy who doesn't work hard, the guy who apparently can't be told anything. He thinks he's arrived, but he can't even shoot a free throw or dunk on Trey Young. Like I don't know if that works well in the locker room. And let me be the your stereotypical basketball pundit. And he's a clutch guy.
Yeah, well, that does matter more than I ever would want it to. An interesting idea also would be like, would you trade him to Minnesota for Edwards or Towns? You could probably do it for Russell easily, but like,
That's
would
Cat's
they
guy.
give up? Would they give up Cat for Simmons?
I would not, but I would like to see Ben Simmons as a small ball 5 point forward ish with D'Lo who can play on and off the ball, and Ant Man who I just love to watch play basketball. Like I know he's not
Yeah,
as efficient as he needs to be yet. He'll get there. The Timberwolves suck, and when you're on a
yeah,
bad team, you shoot.
yeah,
But that would be exciting. They would shoot up my league pass rankings.
yeah. And then you probably have to move. Maybe not move Tobias, but I feel like Cat at the four would fit well with Embiid because he'd space the floor.
Yeah, because he's a 6'11" guard.
Exactly, and he don't want nothing. He doesn't want even a part of being physical in the paint. So I think it'd fit really well. Um, that would be interesting. A lot of these teams don't need a guy like Ben. Like you don't need a guy. It's almost funny because I feel like the Hawks almost need like that would be a spot, but they don't have anyone to trade for him. You
You
know?
know, I heard somebody, I think it was on Simmons' podcast today. I can't think of the guy's name, but he said that if you traded Ben Simmons for Trey Young, I think both teams get better. Now,
Huh?
Atlanta's not doing that. We don't want Ben Simmons. He's not welcome in our city. And we would not let go of Trey Young for what he's doing for us right now and what he embodies as the city. Like, hey, Sean, he had like 34 at this point in the third quarter, right? He ended up with 48. And he ends up wide open on the wing for three. And like he catches it, he looks around, he's like, nobody's there. He looks again, nobody runs out. He shimmies. Then he knocks down the three. And he was like, are y'all really not gonna come out here and guard me? Like, I got 34 already. Like, it's the third quarter. Like, come out here. And just that flashiness, the ice tray. Like, he is Atlanta. I said in a group text today, Atlanta's turning into Gotham City with all of this crime and stuff going on, and he's the Joker.
Yeah, I feel like it sounds like he's the exact way JoJo Embiid embodies Philly. Just like someone who seems to get the city, a little showmanship with the production to back it up for sure.
Yes. But yeah, Philly's flamed out. It's unfortunate. Sorry, my phone's ringing.
No,
Uh
you good. It'll be interesting. I think we're gonna be with this nucleus, we're gonna be a good regular season team for the foreseeable future. But it's like from now on, any change you make has to be with the playoffs in mind.
Absolutely.